welcome to another season of Hoda's Career Info, the program where career professionals from across the globe meet to empower you to succeed. This program is brought to you by Right Career Fit. Listen and learn, and remember to have that very important career conversation with a career professional.
A lot of people just want to be employed. And what I encourage my clients and my candidates to do is make sure that you are employable. It's really important if you're in a remote working situation that you develop that relationship with your boss as strong as possible, and also make sure they're aware of the work you're doing. That combination of attitude and curiosity are probably the two things that I look for as a hiring manager and working with my clients.
Thank you for joining me in Hoda's Career Info, your career program where guests from across the globe share career tips and personal stories to help you successfully navigate your career. I am Hoda, your host. I look forward to another season of career chats with international professionals who will inspire you to take your journey to the next level. My guest today is Frank Newman. Frank Newman is the founder and CEO of Human Resources Consulting Inc., based in Breslau, Ontario. For over 40 years, Frank has worked in human resources to create great working environments where the best people want to come to work every day. As he will hear in today's episode, his pioneering work in compassionate leaves led to the creation of the employment insurance Compassionate Care Leave, which has benefited thousands of Canadians as they care for family members during critical illnesses. Frank and his team service clients that include a wide variety of small and medium-sized businesses in southwestern Ontario, including manufacturing, agri-business, IT services, trucking, accounting, brewing, water sports, professional associations, medical and vet clinics, not-for-profit organizations, as well as musicians and even a magician. As a certified HR leader, Frank is an HR mentor for the Kitchener-Waterloo Chamber of Commerce, an HR subject matter expert with Launchpad at Wilfrid Laurier University, and a volunteer mentor for the Waterloo Region Small Business Center. An accomplished speaker and HR leader, Frank has presented to many community and industry groups, including numerous chambers of commerce and Rotary clubs. He has also appeared on CTV Kitchener News and has been a frequent commentator on human resources issues on 570 Radio Kitchener. Thank you for joining me and Frank Newman. Stay tuned as Frank explains the difference between two key career terms, employed and employable. Welcome, Frank Newman, and thank you so much for joining me today. You've done a lot for the job employment world, and I'm excited to have you on my program.
Yeah, it's a privilege to be here. As I was saying earlier, I've been watching your videos, and you've done a lot to just expand people's knowledge and help people. I mean, it's such a great mission you have.
Thank you, Frank. I really appreciate your feedback. It's always nice to hear reviews. The first question, Frank, that I have for you, if I were to ask you for your career term or for a term that guides the work that you do, what would be the term that you would choose, either that you've done in the past or that you're in charge of today?
what would be the term that you would use, and how would you define it from your perspective, not the dictionary perspective?
Right. Yeah. So the term, so I kind of have two words that I use. One is employable versus employed. And so many people in the working world want to be employed. And as we've seen over the last few years, the world has changed. And so the company that you work for, whether you work for Dr. Hoda or you work for Newman HR, this can change overnight. And what I've seen through my experience is a lot of people just want to be employed. And what I encourage my clients and my candidates to do is make sure that you are employable. And so to be employable, you have to do a number of things. First of all, you have to make sure you're doing a good job at what you're doing. But more importantly, you have to make sure you're watching the market. What are the skills that are in demand? What are the areas where people can learn from you, or what you can learn from others? And because you also, in today's changing world of environment, things can change overnight. And so you want to have that flexibility to change your career as necessary, as certainly I've done in my career. And so for me, it's making sure that you are continually employable.
These are perfect words and so important in today's world. And you said you've changed your work over the years. So can you tell us a little bit about your story and how you got to the HR world?
Yes. Well, so basically, I spent many years in corporate HR. So I started in the oil and gas industry as a junior clerk, and I worked my way up to becoming an HR assistant vice president at Manulife. And so I had the benefit of over 30 odd years in senior HR roles in some of Canada's best companies. And quite frankly, I love the work I do. I love human resources. I love helping people. And so suddenly, though, I found myself at 57 being handed that famous yellow notice that says, "Thank you, Frank, we don't need you anymore." And so at 57, it's pretty hard for a senior HR person to find another role, because the world is looking for more junior people and so on. And so I spent a couple of years in the wilderness, as I called it, as I had a couple of senior HR jobs, but they weren't satisfying to me. And so ultimately, what I decided to do, I'd always wanted a passion to help people and to share my knowledge, as well as a bit of an entrepreneurial spirit. And so I decided I would set up my own HR consulting firm. And that journey has lasted over 7 years, 9 years now. And we have over 50 clients. I have a team of 14 that works with me. And it took some courage, but also it was following my passion and realizing that even at 57, you can create a whole new world for yourself. And often, people in that vintage do wind up losing jobs. And so my encouragement for them is to say, you have lots of skills, you have lots of talents, and just pursue it. And to some extent, be brave.
Such an important message, and it is a common story, like you said, between you hit 55 and you start to wonder, then if by 60 you're not let go, you'd be like, I'm happy.
Yes. Well, had I stayed in corporate world, I would have been out anyway. So and so sometimes for people in that 55 age bracket, it's probably wise to, again, coming back to this employable concept. So what can I do if the company changes, or if they suddenly decide they don't want people who are in that, what they call the gray wave. And so making sure that you're doing things like continuing to build your networks, which most people don't do when they are employed. That's one of the challenges I found, certainly as I moved from employable to looking for a job, is I hadn't networked. And so that's probably one of the most important things I encourage everyone to do.
These are all very important message, whether networking and staying employable. So you've really given us already a lot to think about. But I do have a specific question about the world of work. And so you mentioned it's changing. What can you tell us from your opinion and from your expertise, whether working for someone or now having your own organization? What can you tell us about the world of work today?
Yeah. Well, I've shared with people is we've seen more change in the world of work than has taken place since the Industrial Revolution. If you think about the changes that took place then, we've seen more changes in the last 3 years, largely due to COVID. And so suddenly you and I are now conversing over Zoom, and you're educating and reaching out to people over technology. We've got many people working from home. We've got hybrid work arrangements, which were inconceivable. I mean, some of my clients are hiring people in Portugal to do work in Canada. And so we've seen this ability for people to work anywhere in the world. In fact, the Canadian government has recognized something called digital nomads, which basically are people in the high-tech world who can work anywhere. And so they're trying to attract them to come and reside in Canada for a limited time and as they move through the world. So what this means for individuals is that suddenly we have this increased flexibility so that you and I can work anywhere in the world if we wished. We can work here. And so there's also a certain freedom to that, which means that, again, coming back to the employable concept. So if I have skills, I can set up my own business. So for $2,000, I can buy a website or create a website. And so individuals have much more independent power. The other thing is more and more companies are now willing to hire people on what I call gig assignments. So in other words, short-term temporary assignments. And so if you do have a valuable skill or a training or commodity, you can then market that almost anywhere in the world. So that does certainly change things from where we were a few years ago. We just had that freedom and flexibility, but we have to be conscious of how to best target that and use that.
I would like, if you can, Frank, elaborate for us on that freedom and flexibility and any issues, I guess, that may arise from that.
Yeah, well, one of the first things that comes to mind is the fact that if you have the freedom to work from home, you're in a hybrid work arrangement. One of the challenges people have is being recognized and to have their careers grow and get promotions, because you and I are not physically in the office. And so often what happens is career growth promotions go to people who have greater proximity to the hiring manager. And so it's really important, if you're in a remote working situation, that you develop that relationship with your boss as strong as possible, and also make sure they're aware of the work you're doing, because there is a tendency to overlook people working remotely as they think about promotions. So there is a wonderful benefit to working in a hybrid work arrangement, but make sure that you continue to do that internal networking as much as external, but also make sure you've got that strong relationship with your boss, and make sure you expand your network within the company, because not being there can count against you.
I appreciate your willingness to elaborate on this, because that is definitely an issue I think we need to be talking about. And Frank, I'm gonna ask you a different question, because there's something that you've accomplished and I'm very proud of you, because today I think it's more important perhaps when you were back pushing for it, and that's the mental health discussions and how employees are usually not comfortable sharing that they have mental health issues, or to ask for leave even. So I am very happy to share that you developed the first compassionate leave policy in Canada. Mm-hmm. And my understanding that it is now a government policy under employment insurance. Can you tell us about this policy, Frank, how it came to be, and of course, after that, who would be eligible for it? How can how can an employee be eligible for it?
Yeah, absolutely, Hoda. I'm delighted to share the story and also to promote it as well. So probably about 1998, I was the HR director with GlaxoSmithKline, and we had a remote location in Edmonton, in your home province, where it was a warehouse. And one of the ladies in the warehouse phoned me and she said, "Frank, I've just had some devastating news. My husband is diagnosed with terminal cancer. He has maybe 3 months to live. I want to spend as much time as I can with him. We've been married 35 years. And I thought to myself, what a terrible position to be in. And how can we support her? She was a long-term employee, but we had no legitimate way to recognize, to give her 3 months off with pay because she needed the money. And so, being a very creative HR person, I fudged the system and I put her on sick leave to make sure she got paid. And so she was off on the leave. Her husband did pass away, and she came back to work. And she said to me, Frank, I am so grateful. We had a wonderful last 3 months together. We got to spend time with each other. I looked after him. We loved, we cried. It was the best experience of my life. And thank you for doing that. So I was incredibly grateful that helped her. And then I realized that, many of us go through this as we have either aging parents, or could be a sister or someone who is ill. And so I developed the first compassionate leave program in Canada, which basically allowed people to spend up to, at that time, it was 2 months with a family member who was in the final stages of life. They may be in a hospice care, they may have been received a diagnosis. So I developed that policy. And then about a year and a half later, it was the height of the SARS epidemic. And as you may remember, that was the precursor, I guess, to COVID. And the company I work with, GlaxoSmithKline, was actually manufacturing the H1N1 vaccine. And because of that, the federal minister of health was meeting with the president of GlaxoSmithKline to talk about the vaccines. And as she was leaving his office, and this is Paul Lucas, the president, she said, by the way, Paul, we're interested in new policy developments. Is there anything you can suggest? And so Paul just happened to have my policy on the desk, and he said, here's the policy, compassionate care that we used. And so the federal minister of health took the policy, and that eventually became the foundation for compassionate leave, compassionate care leave in employment standards. So how that works is that if you or someone in your family needs to look after somebody who may pass away within the next 26 weeks or 6 months, you can be eligible to apply through EI for a compassionate care leave. And that will pay for up to 26 weeks at a maximum of $650 a week. So basically, for that time, although you're not getting full pay, you can receive up to $17,000. At the same time, your time off is protected from the company. And so this policy has probably, well, I think probably over 30,000 people over that time have taken advantage of it. And so it's a wonderful story of how an accidental thing happened and became something that, many Canadians have been able to spend time on a job protected leave with their family in their final days.
Well, it's also a great policy that shows that you're not shy about taking initiative to support the people you work with. And it's so nice to have people like you in the workforce.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, and my passion has always been to create, great work environments. My goal for people and my clients, and whether it's customers or applicants, is I want to create environments where you and I wake up in the morning and we run out of bed because we're so happy to get to work. So that's my goal with my clients, and I think sometimes we get there.
Well, I know having conversation with you, I definitely am excited about what you're doing, and I can feel your passion as well for the work that you do. And I always like to wrap up with the final question, asking my guests, just because that's what I do with my clients, my young clients, is what are you going to do in the next 6 months or so that's going to get you out of your comfort zone, or perhaps just embrace a new opportunity?
Over the years, I've seen lots of experiences in human resources. I've seen great triumphs. I've seen highs and lows. I've seen voodoo in the workplace. I've seen love triangles. I've seen suicides, but I've also seen people have wonderful, remarkable careers. But I've also seen a lot of people struggle to get things right. And so one of the things I'm going to be doing over the next 6 months is actually finally start working on a book, and it's called the 5 C's of Creative Leadership. And basically, my goal is to be able to take some of my experience and knowledge, share that with others, both from a point of view of whether you're a candidate or whether you're an employer, and just find a way to make the workplace a little bit more rewarding, a little bit more satisfying, and just give people joy in terms of how to do work.
With your experience, I cannot wait to see the book come out, and I'm sure it will be filled with valuable tips for both employee and employers.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Yes.
I know I said that was going to be my last question, Frank, but I've got one more question for you that I just came up with, and I hope you don't mind. What would be the personal attributes that employers today are looking for?
Great. Yeah. Well, I guess there's 2. I can never answer one question with one thing. So first of all is attitude. Attitude trumps everything. And so even if you don't have necessarily all the perfect match for the skills for the job, having a positive attitude, being enthusiastic about the company and the job interview, doing your research on the company website, and that is really important. And I think having that positive attitude, because I've sat through millions of interviews, and so when you get that enthusiasm, you get that somebody leaping across the table to say, I want this job, that's huge. And so that energy and enthusiasm, that positivity is key. The second component is curiosity. So what I look for in candidates is I want them to be curious about the company. I want them to ask me, well, what's the company's future growth plans? What are some of the challenges you face? What can I do to be a better candidate? And so that combination of attitude and curiosity are probably the 2 things that I look for as a hiring manager and working with my clients.
Thank you so much, Frank, for this final tip. Definitely important to keep in mind as for job seekers. Thanks a lot, Frank, for your time.
You're welcome. This has been a pleasure, Hoda, and I look forward to continuing our discussions.
You've been listening to Hoda's Career Info, the program where career professionals from across the globe join me to empower you to succeed. My guest today on Hoda's Career Info was Frank Newman. You can connect with Frank on LinkedIn and on his website, newmanhumanresources.com. I hope the tips shared help you start reflecting on your employable skills and get you to work to grow your network now rather than when you need to find a job. I look forward to your feedback in the comments section. To let me know if you are interested in an opportunity to talk about your work, you can send me a direct message on my website, rightcareerfit.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter to stay up to date on the latest episodes. Please remember that you can listen to Hoda's Career Info since it's also dropped as a podcast. Don't forget to share your feedback in the comments section. Remember to like, subscribe, share, and follow me on social media for more career info. I am your host, Hoda, and until next time, stay inspired and keep moving forward in constructive ways.